alaikum. Good day. Welcome and what about ye? And welcome back to Are You Not Qatartainment the interviews from Qatartainment in association with CinemaScholars.com. I am your host, Glen Tower, and I'm diving into my interview archives this time around. I've spoken to the big three people before about certain projects, and they are hitting the big and small screens again, so I thought I want to share these wise words from these wonderful people. And these are never before heard interviews, so you are in for a treat. First up, WWF legend Chris Jericho, who returns to the big screen very, very soon this spooky season with the Terrifier 3. He is a franchise veteran, and I spoke to him when he was promoting his new documentary, of which he is executive producer, The Death Tour, which is a fascinating documentary, so please do check it out. It's about wrestlers who want to start out and have to go through this initiation process of traveling the tundra and putting on a show for all the locals out there. And he goes into great detail about that and his career and what he's looking forward to in the movie industry. Next, I speak to the lovely Elizabeth Hurley, who is a well-known brand ambassador and also a big advocate for breast cancer awareness. And this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I thought, what better way to highlight her work? So I spoke to her and her son Damien about his directorial debut, Strictly Confidential, a thriller you can see on Amazon Prime right now. And what a treat it was to speak to them. And finally, screen legend, how lucky am I, Jon Voight spoke to me about his action movie The Painter, which is on demand now, and he is in the big screen at the moment in Francis Ford Coppola's epic Megalopolis, which is, fair to say, splitting audiences. But as ever, Mr. Voight gives it his all. The man has no vanity when it comes to acting, and he is just a legend and an absolute treasure to speak to. So, as I always say, less talking from me, more talking from these special filmmakers. We're going to hear trailers, old and new, from these three performers. And if you like what you hear, please like, please comment, please subscribe, please share, please follow, wherever you're listening to us on Qatartainment, on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. And if you like me, you can find me on Mike T. Dower on Instagram. So please tell me if you enjoy this episode. And there's always more to come. So enough from me. It's over to myself, and let's hear a bit from The Terrifier 3, starring Chris Jericho.
You survived the most famous serial killer since Jack the Ripper. The 5-year anniversary is coming up. I think a lot of people would really like to hear from you after all this time. Want to know what it's like to be in the presence of that kind of evil. What goes through your brain when he's close enough to you. You feel his breath.
Mr. Jericho, how are you, good sir?
Awesome, man. Doing great. Thanks.
Great to meet you last. So, we're here to talk about The Death Tour. So, obviously, at first glance, it would seem like, a serial killer movie? Okay.
Right.
But it could be further from the truth, right? So, of course, I'll include a synopsis in my review, but can you tell us how you became involved in the Death Tour and what's it about?
Well, I became involved in the Death Tour when I did one way back on my very first pro wrestling tour in '89. And then hearing about it over the years, and everybody basically that ever made it out of Canada or didn't make it have done one of these tours. And obviously, there's no serial killers involved. No one's actually dying, but mentally you could die on the road. Your testicular fortitude, as we say in the business, could die because it is so hard to do one of these tours. But why would someone want to do it? And the reason is because it is almost a badge of honor if you come up in Canadian wrestling, or even in the States. I mean, there's been a lot of people that have come up from America to do a death tour, because it gives you a chance to get the reps that you need when you're first starting, but B, more importantly, there is such a legacy and a legend behind this tour that if you can do one and survive it and get a little bit of a name recognition from it, it could help you in your overall career. And like I said, it is almost a badge of honor to do one and to thrive on it.
we have these guys we follow, and like you said, they're finding what an audience is like. They're finding how to present themselves. They're finding a character. Do you think Chris Jericho was formed on the first death tour you did, and you will be where you are with that one?
There was nothing formed on it at all. It was more along the lines of, I think, when you're first starting, there's a lot of glamour that you expect, and that's one of the reasons. And I think the audience watching figures that as well. That you get into wrestling, and it's instantly working in front of thousands of people and millions on national television and making all this money and all this fame and fortune and glory. It's not really like that. There's a long process to get there. And I think that when you go through a tour like this, where there's so many matches in a short period of time, but more importantly, there's so much traveling, and you got to deal with the elements, and it's frozen, and it's storming, and it's cold, and you got to set up the ring and take down the ring, and then you're sleeping on basically the gym floor and buying, peanut butter for $35 a jar. I don't think people really expect that. Like that, this wasn't what I signed up with when I ordered the pay-per-view, last week. And it really does kind of weed out the pretenders quickly. Do you really want to do this? And you can see all the time, not just in death tour situations, but all small time wrestling where guys and girls are like, this is not what I thought was going to happen. And you get, this is part of paying your dues. So I think that's why we really were intrigued to make the death tour, to tell that side of the story, and then also, not just from a professional standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. Why do people want to even get into wrestling in the first place? And there's a lot of interesting personal stories being told in the documentary as well. So I think we're able to kind of serve both masters for what we all wanted to do and what we all wanted to show in this documentary. That stems from, once again, do you have the mental resolve to be a part of this tour, to really understand what you're getting into and to come out the other side?
So when you saw the finished product, do you think, were you taken back in time, as it were, thought, I remember that. I remember sleeping on the floor like that. I'm freezing my balls off and thinking, this isn't for me? Or were you thinking, in happy times, yes, I got through it, I'm a winner?
I think it's all part of your body of work. And I think when we were watching this film, the cool thing about doing a documentary like this, like if you're doing a Beatles documentary, you have all the footage and the story's been told. For Death Tour, the story is unfolding in front of your eyes, And I think that's something when you're doing a documentary, and I've done a few now, you really want to look at it from a storyteller standpoint. And it's like having a conversation. Even if you want to go over here with the conversation, but it's not going there, it is kind of a dead end over there, but it's really flourishing over that way, and you never really expected it. You got to pay attention to what's going on over here. So I took my own personal experience out of it, and experiences that all of my peers have had. Like, it's not about that. It's about what experiences are these people having, and there are some similarities, but there's also, everybody's got their own story and everyone's got their own journey, and every death tour is different. They've been going on for decades. And this just happens to be the documentation of the tour that was going on while our cameras were there, and just all the interesting stories and the trials and tribulations that unfolded that we were able to capture on film and edit in a certain way that made this tale very riveting.
Yeah, it's so watchable. It's such a human story as well. So like you say, you worked on many documentaries, and what our readers may not know is that you are a big movie fan, dare I say, a film geek. And you've been on a number of shows like Collider, and of course the movie Trivia Schmodown, of course. We will bring up Kevin Smith. But I just wanted to ask you, what have been your movie highlights of 2023?
Well, I think one of the major highlights is having, a documentary debut at Slam Dance. I mean, that's huge. I can't even imagine, from the thousands of movies that were submitted, getting selected, first round selection. You see that on all documents. First round selection at Slam Dance, festival. That's a stamp of honor. You know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of highlights, and there's a lot of things that I do throughout the year, but this is something I've never done before. I've never had a documentary, make its debut at Slam Dance. I mean, the last documentary I did, I'm too old for this shit, about a obscure metal band that had a huge fan base in Germany. That one, we didn't go to the festivals. it's on Amazon Prime now, which was really, really cool. But this takes that to the next step of actually being this festival type of movie. And like this one being, I'm working on 5 documentaries now, this one being the second one that I've done. I mean, that's a pretty good track record as a documentarian, producing documentaries, which is once again, like something you probably wouldn't expect Chris Jericho to do, but yet it's such a Chris Jericho thing. Why wouldn't I produce documentaries? Might as well, right? And so I'm just really excited about that. And, it is a huge highlight for me on a mountain of many highlights.
Yeah, that should be as well. What are you looking forward to most in 2024? We've got news that the Terrifier franchise is continuing. You also have a lot coming up. So what's looking forward to 2024?
Well, we just filmed a documentary about pro wrestling in Vietnam, which I think is going to be amazing. For the same reason why the Death Tour is amazing, because pro wrestling can make dreams come true no matter what level you're at, and whether you're at a frozen tundra in northern Manitoba or whether you're in a sweltering jungle like Vietnam. Pro wrestling is kind of the bridge that connects cultures together, which you would never expect. That's getting pretty deep as to what, on the surface wrestling is, but it's so addictive to so many people. And like I said, your dream can come true, even if it's just for a night. We can be heroes even just for one day, as David Bowie said. And that's what we get with the documentary I just filmed in Vietnam and the documentary that we did right now, the Death Tour, is that it doesn't matter the size of the show. When you go somewhere and there's people that are cheering you, whether it's 50 people or 50,000, you're a hero. You're a superhero. And to get that on camera was just a really amazing moment.
Well, best of luck with the movie, sir, and at the festival circuit. It's been a real pleasure. And happy holidays, sir.
Yeah, thanks, man. See you later.
The Death Tour is the hardest tour there is in sports.
If you want to be a wrestler, the Death Tour is a definite way to prove to yourself and to others that you have what it takes. Problem is, to get there, it's not easy.
There's a Dr. Demi blocking the road.
Said he'd been there till 2 o'clock this morning.
When wrestling does arrive to these very remote, isolated indigenous communities,
Just getting there now.
it's like WrestleMania, in the reservation. You got to perform every night. After 3 weeks of it, a couple of them, all of them, will crack.
I've spent the last 20 years raising funds and awareness for breast cancer. And the reason I got so involved is that when I started working for the Estee Lauder companies, they just started their breast cancer awareness campaign. And the founder, Evelyn Lauder, asked me to help her with a new campaign she had. And I said, well, of course, what is it? I just said, well, it's for breast cancer, Elizabeth, because I think that women all over the world are dying of breast cancer and nobody's talking about it. And when she said that, I realized that that's very much the experience that my family had gone through with my grandmother, who had just died of breast cancer, because at the time it was just a subject which we didn't talk about. The pink ribbon hadn't been invented. Magazine covers didn't talk about breast cancer. There would never have been a show like your show where we sat here talking about breast cancer. And we didn't know anything about it. And when my grandmother found her lump, she was in her late 70s by then. She was so embarrassed and frightened. She didn't tell anybody for a few years. So by the time she did finally pluck up courage to tell her doctor, way before she told her family, it had progressed to a stage where it wasn't really treatable. And it was very, very sad. So when Evelyn Lauder told me about her campaign, I joined in. And I have to say, over the last 20 years, there's been the most phenomenal breakthrough in awareness for breast cancer, and in the treatments and in the diagnosis. There's been a great improvement, but obviously there's still a great way to go.
Hurley's, how are we doing today?
No bad, thank you for having us.
I'll thank you for joining me. It's a very exciting time for you guys. Conflicting reports. I want to know the true story. Miss Hurley, did you have to be begged, or did you drop everything to be part of the movie?
I dropped everything to be part of the movie. As soon as the studio said they wanted to make this, Damon was like, will you be on board to produce? I was like, of course. He was like, will you be in it? You did say you would be in my first movie. And I was like, yeah, of course not. And so actually, it was I've welcomed it. It was really nice as a parent to be with your child on their first really big professional job. So actually, it's a parent's dream, isn't it? To be there with your child, controlling all that stuff. It was great, really good.
Yeah, great stuff. So, Damien, your first feature film, of course, but you've been making movies since you were 5 years old, right? So your homemade movie?
I got my first camcorder when I just turned 8, and ever since, I've been torturing every friend, long-suffering family member, everyone I could get my hands on to be in my despot, self-written, self-directed films. I was normally in them. I definitely edited them all. And then I made a short film just coming out of lockdown, which one of the head executives of Lionsgate saw. And I got a call out of the blue when I just turned 20. It's like, hey, we've seen your short film. We love it. Would you be interested in writing and directing a feature for us? And so for a little bit. And then I was thrilled. It was obviously the most exciting news anyone could ever have said in the world. And luckily I had scripts that I'd written when I was 17, and I updated it. I'd gone through a lot in the years in between. And Strictly Confidential was born.
There it was. So I know the first sweeping aerial shot that introduces your mother's character. You sit back and go, wow, that is impressive.
That's why parts of the movie, actually. That was one of the first drone shots you shot on this film. And yeah, it was take one. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And the film was shot in 18 days. So imagine lots of those kids for this. Okay, that was awesome. Let's move on.
I have to say, I am a perfectionist in every sense of the word, but you did have to sort of get on board with the second you feel you've got it, not do it 70 more times for safety, which is always my instinct. I normally do once more for safety. I couldn't not do that, and then move on. But it was a terrifying thing to do and not have the time or the luxury to just keep going and going and going. Luckily, you could.
And plus, you're a script as well. So yeah, so I made notes as I was watching the film. I sort of came to the idea, it's sort of about Agatha Christie meets a dark Mamma Mia. Was that what I think?
My favorite thing I've ever heard. That's actually very similar to something my lead actress, Georgia Locke, is one of my favorite. She came out with something incredibly similar to that. So great mind. I've been describing it as a sensual mystery with a pulse. I think I always get scared when I compare it to things. All of my earlier work, I used to try and say, oh, it's like X meets X, and then it would just give people totally the right ideas. And I haven't really found one that I feel quite sums of the story yet. But I think central mystery with pulse gets people for what they're in for. It's not a hardcore, gritty, nasty thriller, which I've seen a lot of people say is an erotic thriller, which I find quite sexy. I'm afraid it's not. I love erotic thrillers. I haven't made.
Yes, talk about Georgia. I had the pleasure of meeting her a few hours ago, and she's wonderful. And she's so talented. Yeah, she said the same, yeah. And the really, really is on her shoulders, right? Because she is pretty much every scene, she's the beating heart, you're with her. Everyone else seems fine in the situation, but you're with her. Did you find Georgia straight away? Or was it what's more? Did she?
I really struggled finding the right person for me. We had so many auditions, so many tapes, and I just didn't feel it with anyone until finally my wonderful French producer Philippe said, I've made a movie with this wonderful girl a year or two ago. You're just going to love her. Just sit down and watch her. And I sat down and I watched the movie. And by this point, we were, I think maybe less than 2 weeks away from when we meant to start shooting, and we were in a panic. And within seconds of Georgia was created, it was like just stepping into a warm bath. I went, oh my God, I found my Mia. I found my muse. It's sorted. It's brilliant. And thank God, the stars aligning found. Just as I said, not only has she made my movie so just into any bigger than I could ever dream to be, she has become one of my very best friends in the world. I'm in awe of her, and I think she's a phenomenal actress and better plus.
So, Ms. Hurley, let's talk about Lily. I really like it when I get to speak to the director and actor at the same time, because I get to ask a question. So, do you think, I'll ask you both separately, did Lily, spoiler, I'll put it in my article, did Lily want to get caught? Did she want to get found out?
I think that even though, it was an accident, I think even when accidents happen to good people, they obviously have a terrible feeling of guilt and a terrible knowing that her children, knowing that there's speculation about her husband's state of mind and that people were saying he could have jumped when obviously she knows there's no such thing. I'm sure that was really tough for her not to be able to put her children out of their agony. even though it was an accident and not her fault at all. So yeah, I think probably when good, innocent people have around the guilt with them, maybe they do want to get caught too. So I think maybe at the end where she says, maybe that's what I deserve, I think she probably did think that.
I think it's also, I mean, less getting caught and more the secrets ended. You know, I think that the secrets are so all-consuming, you can feel that you're being drowned. And I think, you know, the tag that I wrote for this film, right at the top was, "Are some secrets meant to stay buried?" And I believe that wholeheartedly. You know, even though it's an awful thing to say, there are some truths we'd rather not know that can just stay hiding in the darkness. And I think if you're the harborer of one of those secrets, like Lily is, it can kill you. And, you know, so there's a part of her that knows her life, even though she has a horrific life, you know, her husband's dead, her daughter killed herself, her other daughter, they are just grief-stricken and it's awful. Even though she knows all of that, she also knows her life could go a hell of a lot worse if people were to find out the truth. But when they do, the worst happened, of course, many things happen in the film that we won't spoil now, that all of that becomes second place. But I think, yes, I think, you know, even if she didn't actively want to get caught, I think there's a part of her that was relieved when the truth came out. When Mia finally says to her, "It must be all for you keeping a secret like this," he really says that you played so beautifully. It is like a weight lifted off her shoulders, even though it's an appalling thing. It's paining her more and more to say. It's the first time she'll ever said it out loud to anyone. I think with a secret like that you don't share with anyone, that's it.
Yeah. And just quickly before I go, I just have two things I want to say. So, Damien, the script came from a dark place for yourself. You lost a friend and you put your grief and energy into that. And I've done something similar myself. I started a podcast when I lost a friend of mine, and I'd say sort of mental health podcast, things like that. So would you advise, like I do, for people who are grieving, to put the energy that's released into something positive and creative like you've done?
It was very cathartic. I don't know how functional it was, but it was very cathartic. I enjoyed it. It was, I'm someone who I like to ostrich myself from anything that could consume me, because, like, again, I only really like to work, and I much as I physically can. So anything that could derail that, anything that could take me to a dark place that I didn't necessarily go to be able to go there through work and do them simultaneously is great. I think, yes, I think it's an outlet that can be, it can also be draining though. I think one's got to be careful. You know, I wrote this, it was an idea I came up with when I was 17 and I adapted it to now. But I think if I'd been coming up with it from scratch, it might have been too overwhelming. I don't know. We'll never know for that. But I found it excellent to anyone who doesn't work with it.
Okay, it's always something useful, isn't it? But Peggy, it's been a pleasure, folks, and great luck with the movies released this week. Thank you so much for your time.
That day started so normally. Just another day in paradise.
Rebecca? Rebecca! Rebecca!
It's been a year, sweetheart, without my Rebecca.
She was my best friend.
She killed herself. We came out here to reconnect and remember.
It's actually the first time we've all been together since...
Strange being here without her.
Can't grieve forever.
To Rebecca.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a vision.
We're in need of a great debate about the future.
Mr. Voight, what a pleasure. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm good. Thanks, Glen. Good to see you.
You too. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
So we're here to talk about your new movie, The Painter, of course. What can you tell us about your character, Byrne, before I start my questions?
Oh, my gosh. Well, we've got to be very careful about what we say about this film, because what the film is, it's a journey, and it's full of ups and downs and surprises. So you don't want to, I don't want to tell you the story of my character, because there are a lot of things, there are a lot of those adventurous moments in this film where this character is revealed at different places. And so I don't want to go through too much of it. I know he's been associated with the CIA, and he has this person who he's kind of raised that he deals with in the film, and the person who he's almost raised, as I say, is an operative who is extremely gifted as a kind of a superhero person who deals with violence. He can handle himself very well. They send him into impossible situations and he can handle it. So that's part of the fun of the movie. He's sent into these places and you think, how can any human being survive this? And he just has the gifts. And that's why they call him the painter. They also call him the painter because he actually does paint. But there's two meanings to that word.
Yeah, of course. Like I say, the role is very layered for yourself, which must be part of the appeal as well. You can tell from the opening scene, you're having a lot of fun, you know. So the introduction, you're obviously dressed to the nines, as we say. Perhaps not as glamorous as your Midnight Cowboy introduction, but up there is definitely memorable. But
good.
With Byrne, of course, you play sort of the mentor role. Why do you think audiences, why do we love the character of the mentor, the father figure that guides as an audience? Do you think it's because we love the hero's journey so much? Or do you love the mentor because they usually are played by fantastic actors like yourself? Why do we love mentors so much?
Well, I think we all need mentors, don't we? And we need wisdom as a guide, you know, and when a mentor turns out to be not so wise, that's a tragedy, because we do look up to, well, as all mentors, like teachers. Mm-hmm. If a teacher is teaching, and then we're facing that situation continuously, but where we see teachers are not taking care of the kids. And that's a terrible thing, because the kids look up to these teachers, and they'll do anything in order to appeal to the teacher, or give the teacher credit for knowledge that perhaps he doesn't have or she doesn't have. So it's a mentorship is a big deal. We tend to rely on people. If somebody says that's the best so-and-so and so-and-so, you go, oh, okay. And you give part of yourself over to them, you know. It's a good question. That's a good area to investigate. What's the responsibility of mentors, and what makes a proper mentor? Guru, you know.
Guru, yeah, it's a great word, guru, for sure. So this role sort of has a bit of everything you've been leading to, if you like, in your career. Through the lack of vanity, because obviously he's in disguise so often, but you also have that leadership, authoritative role we have turned in before. Do you think all roles have sort of led to roles like this now for yourself, Mr. Voight, where you can take, I don't care dressing up, I don't care shooting some guns, I don't care giving this heavy dialogue, I can do this.
Yeah, that's very good, Glen. That's very good. You just saw all the stuff that were the danger zones, right? So, but yeah, I think it's casting is everything, and if you get the right person, like who can play a mentor? There are some people who can play that because of what they've done in the past and because of their personalities, whatever it is, and when you get to my age, you know, maybe you can do that a little bit, you know, so people feel comfortable with me playing a role like that. But I understand, you know, I'm always looking at casting myself. When I look at something, I say, well, is this role right for me? Is that something that I should be playing? And I've, you know, I haven't turned down too many things, but I have occasionally turned down something. I mean, I famously turned down Love Story, for instance, as a movie. And Ryan O'Neal passed away very recently, so I'll give it my tip of the hat to Ryan. And they'd come to me before Ryan I was a hot item because they're coming out of Deliverance or something like that. And they offered me the part, and I said, no, I can't do this part. And they said, why? I said, I'll complicate it. I'll make it too complicated. Now, that's a very astute thing for a young actor to say, you see?
Yeah.
I said, I think I'm not the right guy for it. I'm too cerebral. I'm too this and whatever it is. And I think I was right. And I think Ryan was just the right tone for it. You know, good American fellow, straightforward kind of character. And he's a good actor. Ryan O'Neal was a wonderful actor. So, and he was a movie star. That's another thing. He's a movie star. I remember when Al Pacino was introduced to someone, Richard Gere, I think it was, and they said he's the next Al Pacino, and Al watched some of his work, which was very impressive, I would say, and he said he's a movie star, and that's amazing. I mean, Al, first of all, he's one of my friends. He's a dear friend of mine, and I'm always amazed at his insights. And that was a good example. He's a movie star, and he was a movie star. And I think I would say the same thing about Ryan O'Neal. He's a movie star. I'm an actor, you know, and it's a little more complicated. You know, I'll go in different directions. Not that I didn't have some clout as a movie actor, but I was mostly an actor. Anyway, interesting the way everybody's got their role. I think everybody's got something. Once they find it, they become special. You know, in our eyes, right? Everyone. So you just have to look and see what the gold is in there. I'm very fortunate to, you know, had such a long career, and I've had so many opportunities to express myself in a way that was, you know, satisfying to me and impressive to others.
Sure, and the present role. So let's talk about the director quickly. So Kamani Ray Smith, who's in his sophomore directorial feature, if you like. You work with Oliver Stone, Francis Ford Coppola, Michael Mann, Michael Bay, Ben Stiller. How does Mr. Ray Smith?
I'm glad you mentioned Ben Stiller in that group. It's very funny.
Can I just say your tiny cameo in Tropic Thunder still makes me fall off my chair? I don't know.
That's what. Well, Ben's enormous talent, obviously, but and I'm glad I was in Tropic Thunder for a moment, because I think that movie is a great movie. What a great movie!
I love it.
Yeah, me too. Kamani is he's used to a director has nothing but problems. That's what a director is. The guys, well, we don't have this so-and-so for the stunt. We don't have this, whatever. So can we shoot it so-and-so? We're getting some snow a little later on. We better get that done. You know, what are we going to do? And the director has to handle all those problems, right? That's part of it. Now, the artistic side of it is also very demanding. He's got to tell the story. The director is the conductor of the orchestra. He's got to tell the story. So with Kamani, he had been a stunt coordinator, which meant that he participated in the storytelling to the degree that the event of the piece required certain stunts, and he had to figure out what was appropriate to the different characters he was in the event of it. So he's used to making decisions, and he's obviously good with the athletics of stunt work, because those guys are athletes, and it also there's a dangerous aspect in stunt work. They say, well, we got to throw the guy out of the building, and he lands on a truck. Oh my God! Well, you know, how do you do that, right? Well, these stunt guys, they maybe negotiate for the salary of such an event, but then they have to do it, and they have to shoot it the proper way so it looks a certain way, and all of that too. So anyway, a stunt coordinator has a lot of things to do with the film. And they're making decisions, story decisions, and they're making decisions for the security of the film and the effect of the film. So he's partly a director anyway. Now, he wanted it, Stephen Paul, who produced this film, and I say, Stephen really, he's a producer of the old school. He's like one of the old moguls. He does everything. He picks the script, he picks the cast, and he goes on that journey with people like a casting director and looks at different things, and then he watches all the film and all of this stuff and chooses, and he develops the script with writers, chooses his story, develops the script, sees it on its way, and then at the end he comes in and he supervises the editing and chooses the music and finishes up, does the mix in the end too. I mean, he does everything, right? Anyway, he said to me about Kamani, he said he worked with him as a stuntman on some of the earlier films. And he said, Kamani knows story very well. He's a story guy. Well, that's a big one. That's the big one. The guy who can tell a story. So with that information, with that assessment of Kamani, Stephen Paul gave him the opportunity to direct this film. And because it has so many stunts in it, I mean, it's so filled with very demanding fight sequences that you need somebody who really understands that. It's probably better that the director does it. But anyway, in this case, it turned out to be real, that he did these fight sequences magnificently, and Charlie Weber turned out to be a terrific athlete and terrific at these fight sequences. He was wonderful. So anyway, that's how he comes to it, and he's the real deal. He's a good director. I got along very well with him, and we collaborated on things. And he's a good energy. So anyway, I'm very glad for him. He's the real thing, and he'll do other movies now.
Oh, it's a real deal, and it was a real deal of a movie. Mr. Voight, of course, I could talk to you for hours and hours, but my time is up.
The same thing.
I'll write that down on a t-shirt. Jon Voight wants to spend hours with me. Well, thank you so much for your time, sir. It's been a real honor and a pleasure. You take care, sir.
Great, Glenn. God bless, kid. Bye-bye.
What do you know about Peter Barrett?
The painter?
Who murdered 8 federal agents in cold blood.
What? I am looking for someone.
It's me.
Peter?
Where are you?
Can I trust you?
2 agents showed up at my doorstep today, asking about you.
He's hiding something.
I'm the only one who can protect you.
Tell me about the people who came to kill me.
She thinks that you're in possession of something that poses a major threat to our national security.
I'm gonna find out who took your mother away from you.
And then?
And then he'll do what he does.
And there you have it, folks. That was Chris Jericho, Elizabeth Hurley, and Jon Voight talking to me about their various projects. And that's it for Are You Not Qatartained? The Interviews Archive Dive with me, your host, Glen Dower. So again, please help us out. Please help the channel by liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing, all those wonderful things that take you less than 5 seconds. And please just leave a comment as well if you enjoyed. Watch out for more content from our channels very, very soon. But for me, Glen Dower, all there is to say is...
Are you not entertained?